Hey everybody, welcome to the live stream today. Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? We're at the studio today, so we got a pretty good setup. Let me turn off slow mode. This one, right? Edit. Custom. Hey everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm just putting up some stuff. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so we're going back to regularly scheduled Saturday streams, 12 to 1 for an hour, every Saturday now. I've been back from Europe, so we're gonna get back to our scheduling. I wanted to stream in Europe, but we're just constantly traveling. And also, if you're interested in watching like a little bit of the vlog from Europe, let me know and I'll put it out soon. All right, let's talk about some stuff. Did you guys watch the Olympics? I thought this was pretty funny from one of the, like a Chinese influencer. Because so during the Olympics opening ceremony, every country's team had their boat. And apparently China being a large one, you know, they had like 500, 600 athletes. And apparently they had to share a boat with other countries. And this is a point for them to get mad about. I love this joke from Sari. It says, terrible, why wasn't China given at minimum their own boat? And to be even fairer, also a bigger one than anyone else's boat. Pretty funny. Lewis humbly requests advice. Why did my wife leave me? Thanks for the $2. I don't know, I'm so sorry if that happened to you. I'm really sorry. But yeah, so the Olympics, I'm watching it. I hope you guys are watching it too. The opening ceremony was a disaster. I couldn't even watch. I honestly didn't even understand half of the time what was going on. But what was interesting is, so here's a report from Radio Free Asia. So basically they were in Europe, and Radio Free Asia is an American-funded radio station / TV station. But they went and they tried to interview Chinese athletes.
嗨，中国队吗？
对的。
体操队吗？
哦。
你们接受采访吗？
我们只接受央视。
So she's from the gymnastics team, and she says she can only receive interviews from China Central Television, which is like CCTV state media. Obviously, RFA is what they would call like a rebel media because they're always exposing the CCP. They definitely wouldn't want them to interview. I thought it was a pretty interesting detail because and I also heard that the Chinese athletes are not allowed to freely walk around Paris. And everything is definitely restricted for a lot of them. Lucas makes, thanks for the super chat. I humbly ask, do you like grilled cheese? I love grilled cheese. One of the best things I've ever made was a caramelized onion grilled cheese with, so you can either do like provolone cheese or you can do something that's a little bit stinky, like a sharp cheddar. Like a stink provolone. You can even do some sort of an aged cheese. And you do a caramelized onion on top, salt and pepper, you grill it, and then you dip it in some nice, freshly made tomato soup. It's a wonderful combination. All right, so just that for the athletes. They're not allowed to receive interviews, which I found was pretty sad for them. According to this one here, they need to have to be notified through the delegation in order for them to be interviewed. And definitely, if you're a member of the Chinese team, they don't want you to talk to foreign media. So that's the Olympics bit. Cool. Okay, let's talk about our next topic. Oh, actually, yeah, so this is also part of the Olympics. People in Beijing in this video were asked about, because China, like for China, a lot of times the Olympic medal is a way of prompting up nationalism, right? It's that with every country. Obviously, the more medals you win in the Olympic Games is supposed to mean, this is a direct reflection of your country's sportsmanship, your athletic skills. So it's definitely a way for China to win and try to grab this international discourse for their athletic abilities. And so it's one of their main goals to train so hard. And the Chinese, I don't know if you guys know this, but to be an Olympic athlete in China, especially in sports like gymnastics, in badminton, anything that requires a lot of hours, volleyball, ping pong, a lot of them, they really have a very rigorous, very, very hard training regimen. Kids as early, especially in gymnastics, kids as early as 5, 6 are put through the rigorous training until they're, 10 to 12 years old. Then they start to compete. And then, when they're 16, they go to the Olympics. It's terrible to be a Chinese athlete. But this grandpa here says that, winning gold medals means nothing to them because their kids still can't find jobs in China.
拿了金牌又怎么样？没拿着又怎么样？我他妈不是孩子找不着工作吗？你看他生活都受影响了，你让他琢磨那个去，是不是？那跟他有没有直接关系
？Yeah, so basically he was asked, why does it matter to me? My kids still can't find a job even if we win the Olympic gold medal. It really is true. And another sad part about this is that a lot of the Olympic medalists, gold medalists, silver medalists, or bronze medalists in China end up being homeless or close to borderline living in poverty because they spend their entire life training for this particular sport. They, skip school. They never really got proper education, never set up to succeed in life. After they win the medal, they're retired, they got injuries, they got all sorts of problems. The government doesn't take care of them. It's so different than being an athlete in the United States. You get sponsorships, scholarship to colleges, you have a bright future ahead of you, and your achievements in sports actually matter for the rest of your life. You have opportunities opened up for you. Whereas in China, the athletes themselves often end up, unless you're like one of the two very, I guess you would say packageable, or you can package them into a celebrity, right? Then that, like people like Yao Ming, Other than that, a lot of the other athletes, if they're not making a big name for themselves, they end up falling back steps behind other people in society. Yeah, Kurupati 2004 says they neglect their athletes after they're no longer useful. A lot of these athletes in China are basically like bodies for them to earn patriotic points or nationalistic points. Cool. Okay, let's go on to our next topic, which is one that I find very, very interesting. Okay, so for those of you guys who don't know the context, China has this. Here, let me find it for you first. So Singer 2024. Let's see here. Singer 2024. 2024 is this one. Hope it's here. All right. So how do I even get this to the other side? Okay. Okay. So for context, right? This is a Chinese, basically like Voice, if you've ever seen that, or America's Got Talent, those kind of shows, right? But this one is a singing show that they invite a bunch of established singers from across the world to come and compete on this. They have people like, so this, one of the singer who was seen as a very popular, like potentially winner for this whole event, is a Canadian Moroccan singer named, if I'm pronouncing this right, Fauzia. She participated in this, but obviously she didn't win because a Chinese singer named Na Ying won the 2024 championship. And people were complaining that even if Taylor Swift competed, she couldn't win. So why was this such a big thing in China? Well, because the entire competition was essentially rigged from the beginning. Okay, so here's one piece of evidence to prove that. During the finals, they didn't cut the mics on these singers, and this was caught on a hot mic moment. So have a listen. Okay, so this is Fauzia, the lady who was very seen as the front runner or potentially even the winner for this whole competition. And this man here is I believe he's Kazakhstan or from Kazakhstan or Tajikistan. I can't remember, one of the stands in Central Asia. He's also, if you don't know him, his name is Dimash. He's an absolutely like crazy singer. He can sing really high pitch for a male singer. And basically, he tells her that this show is rigged from the beginning. A Chinese singer must win the competition, right? She says here, or he says here, must be Chinese before you. So no matter what, no matter how talented you are, Fauzia, I feel sorry for you, but you could not win this competition because a Chinese singer must win. Okay, let's take a listen. I don't know if I'll get copy strike for this, so maybe I would just listen for a little bit.
这是昨晚歌手歌王决赛直播的一幕，迪玛希一不小心说出了芒果台的黑幕。在昨晚的歌手决赛直播中，迪玛希的麦克风忘记关了，他小声地告诉凡西亚，国人的名字，怎么歌凡西亚的表现都无可挑剔，甚至是让内娱的歌手们感受到了国内外的肯越偏。
Okay, maybe they don't actually let her sing. Okay. Basically, yeah, everybody's really mad about this because it's a competition, it's supposed to be fair. But like everything in China, everything's just fake, right? It's all staged, and there's just no reason for anybody to expect a fair result, which is hilarious because clearly, so throughout the entire competition, right, people were all saying that the Chinese singers, not only did they not send the best of the best to compete, because there are clearly other singers up and coming, established, that were singing much better, than those that participated in this, but also because they placed, or they decided, how would you even describe this? The credibility and the facade of the winner is more important than integral, like the integrity of the competition, or the authenticity of the singing skills. Either way, it's just another demonstration of clearly what China always does is they just decide that, yeah, we have to maintain this, right, on the surface, the face image, or the so-called, like, China has to be number one, whether that's singing or in the Olympics or whatnot. It actually destroys overall people's confidence in your ability. Like, you're not really carrying the singing or the entirety of artistry in China by rigging a competition. What you're doing is you're destroying people's belief in that Chinese singers can be good. There's a lot of Chinese singers who are really good, and they didn't participate in this for whatever reason, but it seems like they, at the end, decided that, oh yeah, I honestly also feel like if they didn't place a Chinese singer for the winner, it might be hard for them to go back to their communist bosses and be like, hey, sorry, how am I going to get more money from you if we didn't win nationalistic points? Someone says, Savala says, David Zhang, didn't this happen to Coco Lee? I don't remember. I think had something happened to, I think a lot of people participated in this. I think Jesse also did. There was Adam, I can't remember his last name. He also participated in this as well. Yeah, like it's probably not the first time they've done this. Oh yeah, Messia also was in this show as well. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, so that's just some of the scandals that's happened. If you really think about this, is such a perfect title for this. Even Taylor Swift couldn't, a script that Taylor Swift couldn't win. It's so scripted, it's so bad. And so Na Ying is this lady that she won, right? She started crying in front of everyone. She's like, oh, it's so good to win this. Everybody works so hard and all these things, blah, 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 blah. But in reality, like, she was one of the worst singing. So she's a very established singer in China. She's very well known. And her voice is great, but I don't know whether because she has not actually been practicing or whatever, or she was basically told by the producers that she was going to win anyways, but her live singing was just horrible. Anyways, pretty mad about this actually. All right, so this was the story about Singer 2024, which, you know, it's rigged from the beginning. All right, the next story. Okay, this one's even more funny. This is also another story about being rigged from the beginning. So let's talk about this. This is our next topic, which, you know, it's typical China again. All right, so CITIC Securities intern was suspended for showing off his wealth by leaking IPO project information in a video. Okay, so what happened is an intern, I'll show you the video first. This is the intern. All right, so this guy, he did a short video on Douyin talking about, so 985 is basically a term that if you're a member of a certain number of colleges in China, like the Ivy League, right, of China. So if you go to a 985, it's like you're going to the Ivy League in China. So he's a first-year intern at a university in China, and he works for China Securities, which China Securities, for those of you who don't know, is like the base camp of communist officials and their offsprings. So you already know from the looks of it, being able to intern at China Securities is your family background is probably pretty important in the communist official way. So anyways, let's watch this first. So boom, immediately you got the Porsche, I think this is the Panamera or the, I don't think it's a 911. I don't think. But you got the Beijing tag, right? Immediately, boom, you got the Porsche. Okay. Okay, so he shows off that he's doing the IPO stuff, which, from my understanding, these are secretive IPOs that you weren't supposed to reveal. All right, so we got the Chinese rap. All right, so he is clearly rich. A first-year intern is able to afford a Porsche. There is no, I don't know, if you've been to an American university for college, you might have seen this already. You got like rich Chinese people, international exchange students coming from China driving like Mercedes, Porsches, you got BMWs, all those things, right? Pretty typical. So it's not like this is out of the ordinary for these people who are clearly offsprings of communist officials to own a Porsche in China. But it's the irony that he's apparently like internship, right? You're supposed to be this poor college student trying to get work experience, getting into the corporate world. And here you have this Mr. Porsche over here coming in, first year college student, coming to work, driving a better car than possibly his boss on a regular day, and they're showing you all these like secrets. So some people made some screenshots here. I think, is it here? Let me find it. No, that's just the same thing. Maybe it's, yeah. So these are the screenshots. So these are some of the IPOs that he was working for. Some of them, obviously, and he's like showing off these data, which you're not supposed to. And let me see if there's anything else. No, that's done. Okay, and so his background here, he competed in some martial arts competition too, and he's also involved in finance. Dude's pretty insane. Okay, and so here's the chat log. Basically, it says our meetings this morning concluded. The chairman was super mad, and he says, what did he say? He says they're going to severely punish, and they're going to investigate and severely punish whoever hired this guy into the internship. Okay, who is his dad? That's the question you're going to be wondering, right? Allegedly is this guy, who is a communist official, part of the 20th Party Congress Central Disciplinary Commission member. Basically, that's the committee that oversees all the other communist officials' corruption problems. This guy is part of that. So his dad, ironically, is an official in the Communist Party who oversees others' corruptions, supposed to interrogate them, to punish them, provide disciplinary actions. Yet he's over here, his own son is just exposing his whole family. Pretty hilarious. Again, this is another story that made onto the trending topics in China. Okay, Hani says, what happened to the cosplayers? I'm going to be talking about that next. So, okay, where was I? Yeah, so they found his dad, and I think there's... Where was the stuff that I wanted to talk about? Okay, so here, let me translate this to English first. Okay, yeah, so like I said, CITIC Securities is part of China's security, which is basically where all the communist officials pool their money together. And it's probably the most, I would say the most important company for a lot of these major communist families' wealth. And now that they've leaked the IPO material, so he's allegedly been fired, he's been dismissed. But it doesn't mean that the sensitive information did not leak. So you have these three here. So the most outrageous thing was that he leaked 3 projects: Wangyuan Technology, Hyro Innovations, and Guoneng Information Control. What each of them do, I think they talk about it here. Let's see. No, not this one, they don't talk about it. Where is the one that he talks about what exactly they do? Nope. Okay, I can't really remember where I put it, but there was a one tweet that basically talks about these companies being quite sensitive, like they're obviously tied to the government as well, and they're getting fundings for them. But other than that, you know, it's just crazy because we have such a difference in the amount of access to, right? You have people in China who are just freshly graduated this June, can't find any jobs. And then you have this guy here on an internship driving a Porsche to work every day. Typical. Question is, I keep seeing these crazy rich young Chinese people on XHS. Everyone has like a penthouse. It's crazy. Oh yeah. Michael Cod says, I am from Myanmar and we suffer a lot of political instability and civil war due to China. Their intervention and weapons are killing the Burmese people every day. Can you cover about this? Yeah, I've done some of the coverage before. It's crazy that, so part of northern Myanmar, for those of you who don't know, is controlled by these Chinese families who basically run drug and scam operations out of them. And they extend that into the rest of the country because, I mean, a lot of times in Southeast Asia, crimes are a part of politics, or the fact that the unstable governments in these countries, especially in Myanmar, who is under a junta rule right now, require those local sort of drug lords or gang lords or whatever to cooperate with them, right? There's the ongoing civil war in Burma, which is very apparent that China has a hand to play into it because, right, with Myanmar's geographical location, it gets them access into the ocean, which is very important for, I guess, a better way to show you is Google Maps. Let me pull up Google Maps here. Let's see where we are. Yeah, so Myanmar goes into the ocean here, the Indian Ocean, and there is something here. This part is very important for China's access through the Straits of, what is this called? Straits of Malacca. That's what it's called. So it leads into the Strait of Malacca, and if they can pass through, China here passes through Myanmar to get access into the Bay of Bengal, which is the Indian Ocean, then it allows them to continue supplies in case of a US blockade. So there's a lot of geopolitical reasons why China wants Myanmar's cooperation, particularly with regards to the South China Sea, the access to the shipping routes, and everything, you know, the ocean really connects everything. Mainland fobs are loaded with daddy's laundered money in their flashy cars. Yeah. So when I was in university, I heard this story, which is still crazy to me today, was that in first year of university, there was a guy, one of my friends, this didn't happen to me, this is from my friend. He had a dorm, like, flatmate, right? Lived in the same dorm as him. It was a two-person, like, shared dorm. The guy was Chinese. He stayed for 2 months and then he disappeared. He never like slept in the dorm again. And then he disappeared for like a few months. And then so my friend got worried, was like, hey, you know, where are you? Are you okay? Did you like go back home or something? Did you like flunk out of school? And he says, oh no, I bought a house and I live outside now. And he says, I'll continue to pay for the dorm and you can, you know, just enjoy your personal space, your privacy here now. Yeah, so the guy just went out and bought a house, which is, it doesn't seem that crazy, right? But for me, back at the time, I didn't really understand how much money these guys had coming from China. I was just like, whoa, you know, this guy had enough cash, like $300,000, $400,000 to just drop on a house. Obviously, they paid in all cash, so maybe $1 million, who knows? But yeah, he just went out and just bought a house. Pretty crazy. Webtoon Democratic Role-Playing Game says, I've mentioned you on Twitter about a battery explode in the elevator from China. Did you know what happened? It was true. Yeah, I saw the video. I just don't know what happened. I think it's probably a faulty battery. They usually have pretty inferior construction on the battery. So it's probably just one of those cases. Why do they even go to college at that point? It's like degrees to these people don't really matter, but it's about showing off, you know? Hey, look, I graduated from this college. Or like those people that go to Harvard or Cambridge or Oxford or Yale, a lot of them, not just from China, right, from Saudi Arabia, the rich princes, you wouldn't know they are. Like, I swear, I think I went to school with some of the sons of like mega oil corporation elites. But these guys are pretty normal, pretty chill guys. Like they're you know, from Egypt or from the Middle East. And these guys spoke perfect English. Like you can tell they went to international school. And you can tell that they were educated in a certain way because it's just how different they behave than the rest of the students that I lived with. It's all about status, right? It's all about access, being able to tell people back home, being like, hey, I went to Harvard, you know, I went to Yale, I went to Cambridge, etc. And Cambridge is a breeding ground of Chinese spies, by the way. Okay, so let's talk about our next story, which let me just get off of here. Where was my Google app? Okay, all right, so let's talk about our main story today, which is actually, it's an inspiration from this video, if you haven't seen it. This is a YouTuber named Aini. She is talking a lot about the social cultures from a Chinese perspective. If you haven't subscribed to her, you should. She does a lot of great work with her content. Here, let me show you the channel. It's called Aini. And this video's name is called China Has a Soft Power Deficiency. So she gives you like this overview, pretty generalized look at why China has problems exporting its soft power, which is basically like cultural products, right? In Japan, you got Japanese anime, you got Japanese manga, you got all sorts of cultural things, right? People go to Japan because they are attracted to that stuff. In Korea, you have K-pop, you got the Korean culture, the Korean food, barbecue, you know, kimchi, etc. Those are those cultural exports that you have. If you really think about it, what does China have today that can be exported out to the world that doesn't make people go like, you know, this is from the CCP? I think I'm a soft power export, but like a negative one. That's what I think I am. I'm a soft power export from China that turned against them. No, just jokes. But yeah, so like, you know, Chinese dramas, name one off the top of your head. Do you know a single Chinese drama or TV show? Unless you're really into that, you know. Even Jackie Chan, like Jackie Chan, when he was really like a soft power export, or even like Bruce Lee, right? It wasn't because they were Chinese, it was because they were Hong Kongers back before Hong Kong was you know, corrupted by the CCP. So even the best part, like these martial artists, right? Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, or others like Jet Li and all of them, they were associated with the Hong Kong movies of the 90s and 80s, not because they were associated with the Chinese entertainment. So China really doesn't have a lot of soft power export. You might have seen the Netflix the adaptation of Three Bodies, or Three Body Problems, which is a scientific novel from China, right? Or the most recent one, like that's really the only thing that they've done, which is the scientific novel. And even that is still really not, it's not really a Chinese thing, because the version that they show in China is heavily censored, and then the one that Netflix adapted is using a lot of Westerners. Genshin Impact is another supposed soft power export. But guess what? Genshin Impact is full of Japanese element, which, by the way, they tend to hate for some reason, out of pure hatred for the Japanese. Memes, like Chinese memes, okay, all right, we covered Chinese memes, right? That's a pretty good point. But if you really think about it, those memes are, like, they don't reflect Chinese culture. They don't reflect Chinese heritage, right? The very simple reason is that Chinese culture was destroyed. And also, by the way, one of the comments I read on the channel, a viewer, I can't find it right now, but you know, he was also an inspiration for this topic. And he basically, I'll put it up when I find it again later. But he basically said that the CCP destroyed 5,000 years of Chinese culture in 2 to 3 years under the Cultural Revolution. So dating back before 1949, you could find a lot of traditional stuff, but today you can't. So let me show you some videos to get to understanding what we're talking about. Because they're having an open crusade against cosplayers. Because like apparently, because the way that they think they're defending Chinese culture is by not allowing these Western so-called or Japanese elements into it, right? Cosplayers cosplaying as anime characters. They think that that's threatening the Chinese culture.
不允许 cos 乘坐 ，cos 上地铁被警告。
重新说一遍。
你这种打扮会引起小朋友的不适，以后上地铁的时候，请你卸妆。这种。
Okay, so this security person is asking her to take off her makeup, her cosplay makeup, on the subway because it was making kids uncomfortable.
好的，谢谢你。OK， 我收到了。
Okay, so this is what she looks like. Okay, and then they're saying that it makes kids look uncomfortable. Okay, you know, kind of over the top. But if I'm a kid and I'm reading manga and stuff like that, I'd be pretty excited to see a cosplayer on the train. All right, the next one here, this is just on the streets. Again, you know, this is like a cultural lynch mob against the cosplayers. This one's pretty tame, to be honest. Okay, so in the video, you might not be able to hear it, but she says that you're destroying Chinese culture by cosplaying. All right, here's the next one here. So this one's even crazier. Oh yeah, so basically she's like scolding these people for dressing up as a cosplayer, saying that they're like not respecting culture, and then they start to get into like an altercation here, which later on leads to actually ambulance arriving. So here's the other perspective. Okay, to be fair, I think cosplayers are some of the most non-threatening people ever. Like they literally just want to go to conventions and just show off the outfits. From MWM 2100 says, I have some second generation Chinese. All of them are extremely frugal. Does that have a link to the Chinese culture? Yes, well, because like a lot of Chinese teaching is that you have to conserve, you have to save up, you know. A lot of that also comes from fear because they went through such different rounds of political movements that they're afraid that they might suddenly be be involved in another sort of massive movements in China where they could lose everything. So they want to save money for the future. All right, it ended up having one of the cosplayers being sent away on a stretcher. So yeah, pretty violent stuff apparently. This is another one. So this guy actually attacked the cosplayer already off screen. And so these guys are saying, oh, you shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't be violent. And you see that there's like actual pool of blood on the floor. So, you know, the person got hit. Let's see here. Yeah, so you got somebody on the ground here who was attacked. And his whole thing is like, oh yeah, like they're Japanese, they're wearing Japanese stuff, like blah blah blah. This guy is a pure nationalistic, brainwashed fool, and he thinks that the best way to do so is by attacking people. It's pretty bad. Like, honestly, don't use violence. Okay. So another thing is what I find very interesting is the fact that today, like, okay, so for a while, right, Hollywood was very much into the China money. You had a lot of films with Chinese actors in it. You had films that had to take place in China. And then some of them, you know, they were paid by Chinese entertainment companies, invested into it. But if you really think about it, like, what was one Chinese movie that you can think of off the top of your head that you watched it and you're like, wow, this is a really good movie? You know, Korea had the Parasite movie, won an Oscar. Like, the only one that I can think of that really made it, that was a representative of part of Chinese culture, maybe, was directed by a Taiwanese or an American director, An Lee, who directed Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon. Like, that's not even really like a Chinese domestic production. Love the channel. Thanks for your answer. Thanks for the donation, or I guess that's super chat. Black Bond says, what's your thoughts on China's intention of eradicating Tibetan culture and language? Well, obviously they want a unified culture. They don't want Tibetans to have their own heritage, because when you have your own distinct difference compared to the government, you are actively threatening their stability and their legitimacy. So they definitely don't want that. Mulan, okay, but the thing is, the Disney live action Mulan was really not that good. But the original Mulan, again, it's really not Chinese. It's made by Disney. And also the other big thing you have to consider about culture in China is that everything today that they do has to be political. Even if the person, the director or the artist, doesn't want it to be political, you won't pass the inspection in the censorship department because they say that, oh, this one doesn't fit our glorious agenda. So in the end, everything that comes out has to be injected with this flavor of the party, which then makes everything look not so authentic. And it's like the censorship is huge in China, right? A lot of times, if you're trying to make something out from China out to the world, the first round of opponents that you have to defeat isn't other foreign films, it's your domestic audience. So if it doesn't make it here, it's hard for you to get support from the government to make it overseas. Yeah, well, so like with Jackie Chan, I mentioned before, a lot of his good stuff came before he bowed to the CCP, like when he was doing films in Hong Kong. All right, let's do our last topic, which it's also absolutely weird, but typical of China, which is this story. Let me see here. This one's done, this one's done, done. Okay, so first let's show you the video, all right? So here's the video. Let me start from the beginning. Okay, so this was the video that I made a short on, and I said I'd talk about it on screen today. This is from a Taiwanese fermented tofu productions facility, and it's called, I think it's called Liu Ma Ki. Okay, that's the Cantonese pronunciation for this. Liu Ma Ki is, they've been found that the products like in the jar, so you got these, they're called fermented tofu curds. What they taste like, it's basically a cross of salty, how would you describe it? Like, it's like Chinese cheese, basically, like Chinese tofu cheese, but salty. And actually, if you add this to rice, if you add this to your hot pot soup base, your sauce for hot pot, you can add this to even like for a marinade for your chicken wing. It's very umami, it's very flavorful. It's really good, okay? It looks disgusting, but it's really, really friggin' good. It's fermented tofu, okay? Then if you go the next step, you get stinky tofu. So this is like the step before that, so you get fermented tofu. It's a typical sauce that they use in the Kanto region in Chinese cooking. Okay, so they were found that a batch of these jars contained higher than normal levels of bacteria, in that it's not safe for consumption anymore. You probably get a stomach ache if you ate that. In one of the batches they tested, it was revealed that it was 12 times higher than the normal consumption amount for a food safety reasonable amount. Okay, so at first I was like, what? I didn't get the context of this video. I was like, okay, so what? It's just basically typical China fake stuff, you know, toxic stuff, right? But the fake part actually later makes sense because what they are doing is this bigger jar here, it comes from mainland China. So some random facility in mainland China produces the tofu, the actual fermented tofu. All these people did was transfer it to a smaller jar and filling it with the liquid, which is a wine. And then they're calling that Hong Kong made. So they're faking the origin of this entire thing. Now, given the fact that we know that in China, there's no food safety regulation. So for you, you can just produce anything like fermented tofu with too much bacteria, so what? And since they're importing this from mainland China, that's really not Hong Kong made. So this whole situation destroyed a lot of the credibility of this brand, which is a Hong Kong icon. So here in this post, what they're talking about, which we can watch this video to find out.
Liu Ma Ki has been a family-run business that became famous for making and selling the popular fermented tofu products for nearly 120 years.
120 years.
Its shop here in Hong Kong's Yangma neighborhood is closed after the company found itself mired in controversy. Hong Kong Centers for Food Safety announced on July 4th that jars of Liu Ma Ki's fermented bean curd taken from a shop in the Sai Ying Pun neighborhood has shown unsatisfactory levels of the bacteria Bacillus carriers. The bacteria produces a toxin when heated and left out for too long and can cause food poisoning, vomiting, and diarrhea. Test results show the sample contained the bacteria at a level of 130,000 per gram. The threshold for safe consumption is 100,000 per gram.
Yeah, so this was the safety test that they initially did when they were going to investigate this, right? So that was the just very beginning of this chaos.
The family behind Liu Marquis initially challenged the government's findings. A family member appeared on the television program, blaming authorities for sending the shop to hell overnight and for destroying its reputation. But
okay, at first they denied it, but then the worst thing, honestly, that's why, like I'm saying, the whole culture of toxic food, of faking products, has been exported to Hong Kong. Hong Kong is done. Like they've corrupted Hong Kong. Like Hong Kong used to be like Cantonese food. When you go there, like you're expecting, it's different than what you get in China. You're expecting cleanness, or at least relatively cleaner food. You're expecting made in Hong Kong stuff. But now it's you can't even tell. Obviously, it's much cheaper for them to get it from from mainland China and then import it than it is probably for them to make it domestically here.
Center for Food Safety released another report on July 16th, saying that a new sample taken from the same Liu Marquis product was found to contain a Bacillus caries level of 1.3 million per gram. The amount is
So that's about 12 times.
12 times the recommended level for safe consumption. Liu Marquis' operator maintained the new sample was actually tailor-made for the center's staff based on authorities' suggestions, given it had already suspended producing the fermented bean curd after the first warning. As of July 22nd, it has been hard to find Liu Marquis' fermented.
Okay, so basically it destroyed this brand overnight because they decided to use bad stuff from China. And which I find very interesting is that it tells us two things, right? Number one is Hong Kong's food safety is down the drain. Honestly, it's sad at this point. And also the second is, why were they doing this and not telling people firsthand? Like the owner were like, oh yeah, no, the government's screwing with us. We're not doing any of the stuff they accused us of it. But actually they were lying, obviously. So later they were found that they were using imported bean curd, exposes legal loophole according to experts. Okay, so it says a roll over the use of imported fermenting bean curd for 3 decades by a 119 years old has been exposed to safety regulation loopholes. So basically they've been doing this since like as early as 1990s, which is when China took over Hong Kong in 1997. So yeah, this basically started when China got their hands involved in Hong Kong. And now obviously it's finally been revealed because I think, now I don't know if this is the first batch that had the problems with the bacteria, or that in the past they just never really, they neglected to report on this. But yeah, like in China, you really cannot deal with food safety in the ways that you see here. Like people that go to China often get sick from anything they eat. Same thing within India, because it's just so dirty. So now it shows us, yeah, stuff that you get in Hong Kong is probably not even safe. I think honestly, to be honest, I buy a lot of made in Taiwan products. If I can get it that's made in Taiwan, I will get it over made in China 100% of the times. You're much cleaner, much cleaner. Cheat your way. Yeah, so that's Elaine Michelle T says the most ridiculous part is the owner of the fermented tofu actually said it doesn't really count as made in China because the man who produced the tofu in China was originally from Hong Kong. It's so crazy. It's the fault of the Japan's treated water. Exactly. The finger is where all the flavor comes from. Yeah, dude, that's the part I was like, oh my God. When I eat this stuff, when I eat the fermented tofu, like you got the jar, right? Or actually, it's more like this. I use a chopstick in there and I wash it after so I don't cross-contaminate. But I guess I've been doing the extra step wrong anyways because these people were just putting their fingers inside anyways. Like one finger touch. And then her fingers go in there too. Like where's the glove? Pretty crazy stuff. It's finger looking good. Exactly, it's finger looking good. Okay, let's spend the rest of this answering some questions that you guys might have. Let's see here. I haven't been reading the chat that much, so let me go back and just read it a little bit. So you guys might have seen Shaolin Soccer, which is made by, what's his name? Stephen Chow. He's also Hong Kongese. He's not, or Hong Konger. He's not Chinese, like mainland Chinese. If you've seen those movies, Hong Kong, there's Kung Fu Hustle, there's Shaolin Soccer. Those are all made by Hong Kong directors. Pete Cho, thanks for the $5. What's your opinion about Trump wants Taiwan to pay the fees for the security needs? Maybe you can explain more about this. I think it is necessary. Okay, so that's a huge question that needs to be answered, okay? This is such an important question for people to understand, or a concept for people to understand, okay? Let me pull up some data first so that I can better explain to you. Okay, so here is some data. Let me find it first. So spending, so that I can show you guys, okay? 1 second, 1 second. All right, so let's look at this one. And I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna show you guys. Okay, all right, ready for it? This is the Congressional Research Report on Taiwan's defense spending in terms of its GDP. In 2019 to 2023, which I'll highlight, spending increased by an average of nearly 5% per year, and as a percentage of GDP increased from 2% to 2.5%. Defense spending is set to increase again in 2024, albeit at a slower rate. In 2022, Taiwan's president announced a realignment of Taiwan's military forces. Okay, so Taiwan spends about 2% to 2.5% per year on defense, okay, defense budget, which is like 0.1% or like 1% of what China spends on their defense budget, okay? So no matter how much Taiwan spends on their defense budget, they will never have a military capable of defending itself from China's attack. So what Trump is saying is, instead of having to spend this amount on your defense budget, which is pointless technically if you cannot defend yourself anyways, why don't you give us that money to the United States? You pay us for defense so that we will guarantee you, because the current US policy right now is strategic ambiguity, which is basically not telling the other side, will we go defend Taiwan or not? Instead, Trump is saying, you give us the money, it's like protection fee, right? You give us the money, we'll 100% come defend you because you paid us to do it. It's like buying insurance, okay? Now, some people are gonna be like, oh, Trump should just do it for free, blah, 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 blah. I get that. But also the thing is, if you ask somebody to do it for free, there's always a commitment issue, right? There's always a commitment issue. And for Taiwan, commitment, or the trust and confidence of the United States, is not a 100% thing. Like, you cannot expect the US to promise you something and then act upon it because there's different factors involved, right? But if you're paying this guy, if like I'm paying you insurance and I get hit by a car, the insurance is gonna pay me, right? Like, that's what I expect from them. So you're actually getting a more guaranteed security protection out of it if you pay someone something. That's what Trump is saying. Like, it sounds bad, but it's actually much better for Taiwan. Because guess what? Their survival is the most crucial thing for them. And if they're paying 5% of their GDP to get that, don't you think the Taiwanese government would want that to be done? Like, I think that's a better deal than to spend 5% on pointless military improvements. I think that's a much better deal. But yeah, that's my take on it. I think that if Taiwan is ready to be serious about their defense, which, to be honest, like if I'm not trying to be, critically speaking, I would say that Taiwan is not nearly enough on their defense at all. So. Zanowin says, I wouldn't trust Trump to hold my ice cream, let alone follow through with an agreement. Yeah, so see, that's the thing, right? You don't have to trust him on his promise. If you just pay somebody something, you're going to be like, okay, look, I paid you this, and if you didn't act on it, well, then let's talk about the legal repercussions of that. Like, it's a much bigger issue for the United States if they say that we're going to do this for Taiwan and they paid us to do it, and then we don't do it. Look at the case with Ukraine. Like, if Ukraine was paying the United States for protection, then Russia probably wouldn't invade because now you're getting somebody to pay for it. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I understand why you would think that it's like, oh, it sounds so weird. NTN says, David, have you heard of Zero Day, the new Taiwanese TV series? Yeah, I seen the short extended play of it. It looks really cool. It's actually a really interesting thing because that talks about the realistic scenarios in which people of all walks of life would experience if they lived in Taiwan during times of war. I strongly recommend it for people to watch. I wouldn't trust Trump's word, though it's not really a guarantee. The announcement alone that Trump's going to defend Taiwan is another deterrent. Yeah, but the thing is, right, so Zaptouch asked a pretty important question, which is the difference between deterrence versus protection. Deterrence is the aspect that you're going to deter the invasion in the first place. But that's on the idea that the other side really thinks that they're not going to lose or that the amount of losing or the amount of losses that they will suffer is too much so that they won't do it because, that's deterrence. But the problem with Xi Jinping is that he's set on doing this. And the CCP doesn't really care how many people they lose. So whether they do it today or 10 years down the line, they're going to do it. In what shape or format or how big of the scale, we don't know. But it's something that they're 100% set on doing. So then that raises the question, will deterrence fail? Because deterrence is not 100% guaranteed. And deterrence really comes at the price of, I guess you would say, the impact on the world, right? If you think about it, objectively speaking, deterrence in the United States has not been working for a very long time. And that's why around the world there's the Ukraine war, there's conflicts in the Middle East. So deterrence is only built on the guarantee that you have the capacity to stop it. But protection, on the other hand, is so different because protection is you're guaranteed to do something for someone because they're paying you for it. And I think that's really the big difference. We'll see. You might not believe what I'm saying right now, but let's see. I think the better option for Taiwan is to do that. But again, that's just my opinion. All right, I think we're going to end the stream right here. Thanks you guys so much for watching today. Again, we'll be back every Saturday, 12 to 1 for some of the important news of the week. Take care, guys. See you next week.